Hey there, have you ever seen those videos where people polish rocks so much that they eventually end up becoming mirrors? Well, imagine somebody doing that to a game. And to be more exact, doing that to Half-Life Blue Shift. Many may say that Black Mesa was never really needed. While nice to have, Half-Life 1 manages to hold up on its own still. They essentially remade a timeless game. So what if you took those same methods and applied it to a game that doesn't hold up on its own anymore? We're of course talking about description. All new players and also
Of course, he does have an
talking
adaptation.
about Black Mesa Blue Shift. As someone with 10 years of level design experience, I will be telling you all the reasons Black Mesa Blue Shift is so incredible, how they managed to improve the original sections of Blue Shift by pushing the 20-year-old source engine to its limits, and also perhaps critique certain areas that I think need adjustments. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Subscribe, thank you. To correctly analyze what the remake did right, we have to look at what Blue Shift did wrong. Let us first start with the beginning tram ride, which is undeniably great in both. Both do a great job at introducing us to the cartoonishly large Black Mesa. The one of Black Mesa Blue Shift manages to be about the same length as the one of the original Black Mesa, extending it by about 4 minutes compared to the original Blue Shift, which will be a continuing trend. With some enhanced and extended areas, this is as good as a tram ride will ever look. We of course get the much expected cameo of Wait, what's that? Is that the sponsor of this video? This video is sponsored by War Thunder. War Thunder is an epic free-to-play
multiplayer. I did see the sponsor video, but I did not expect him to hit us with that.
Iconic tanks, ships, aircraft, helicopters, and even rare prototypes, all ranging from the mid-20th century up to the present day, with constant updates to grab.
Let me just skip the ad. No offense, my guy, but still. Alright, here we go.
Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. So as I was saying, we get the much expected cameo from Gordon Freeman in the scene. Gordon seems to wave at the player as well, which is a nice touch. This area is of course an exact copy of the one from Black Mesa, as it should be. One thing this mod will continuously nail throughout is custom animations of all kinds. And you really can't imagine how hard it is to animate something in the source engine. Instead of just running at the door like you would in the original Blue Shift, you instead actually knock at the door, with a visible animation. Not only
that is actually really cool.
The door, force the door open, with a custom animation once more. The tram ride itself was never much of a problem with the original Blue Shift, but Black Mesa Blue Shift still managed to improve it by a lot. Insecurity is the next chapter, and is greatly expanded. And by greatly, I mean great.
Man, I can't wait to get to the fucking awesome expansion that is, of course, the, God, what was it? Oh yeah, it was the Opposing Forces sequel. They are going to make that one. And I'm really waiting for it. Anyways, let's continue.
You'll recognize certain areas that essentially were just remade, as you'd expect. A lot of them though are completely new and serve as great introductions to the Black Mesa research facility. These areas are as detailed as it gets. Just to name one example, putting on the glasses and earmuffs in the shooting range actually affect your vision and hearing. Incredible stuff. Perhaps my favorite thing about this mod are the bunch of new NPC interactions. Half-Life has always been about actually feeling like you're entering a world with real people in it. And its countless lines of dialogue for each NPC you meet are proof of that. And not that the original Blue Shift also didn't have some fun sequences set up with the NPCs, but here you are able to meet so many characters and dynamically interact with them. Or perhaps just watch them go about their day. There are so many minor interactions I thought of that pretty much anything you can think of doing with them will feature a matching response. You can keep on closing this lady's laptop, to which she'll get increasingly frustrated with you. This guy is seen smoking, which is something that not a lot of mods think about adding. Or what about this guy getting drenched at a water fountain and actually dripping water on the floor? Thankfully, the Blue Shift team also managed to get the original.
That is gonna be really difficult to animate. Dripping water on the source engine, like source engine is already complicated as it is, but dripping water from an NPC, technically speaking, that should be available by default, but nah, what am I kidding? Like, anyone would ever go out of their way to animate that hellish nightmare. I mean, does anyone even know how to animate the faces of Digimon stuff? They're absolutely crazy about these stuff. Either way, though, it is really appreciated that they're going out of their way to involve so many details. Though, if I have to be honest, chances are no one's going to care about them. It's one of the main reasons for why, despite it being a remaster, it really shouldn't be that, too much of a difficulty. But at the exact same time, with how many remasters they've made in most games, I am glad they're giving us more details and stuff like that, because some remasters just straight up increase the graphics and just lose many of the details. Case in point, for example, does anyone know about the infamous GTA 3 and Vice City and San Andreas remasters. You know, the ones that you get for PlayStation 4 and below. Man, that remaster sucked balls. Anyways, let's continue with Lucia's video.
Original voice actors from Black Mesa, which we know are incredible, so the voice acting quality helps cement these great interactions.
My God, what are you doing?
Wait, you can eat the donuts? Instantaneous 10 out of 10. If you can even eat the donuts, this is absolutely amazing.
Also, this is perhaps worth noting. Black Mesa was made by Crowbar Collective. This one is made by HECU Collective, a completely different team. The original Blue Shift Insecurity chapter was simply a walking simulator. In Black Mesa Blue Shift they added some gameplay using puzzles. For example, fixing the elevator is no longer just pressing the elevator button as intended. You actually have to climb up the elevator shaft and plug in a cable before going down to press the button again. This adds much needed immersion that the original Blue Shift took out by just having you press a button. One thing I will critique before we move on is that these hallways are pretty twisty. On my first playthrough I had a bunch of problems figuring out where to go exactly. That being said though, no matter what direction you go, you will find some cool sequence to interact with. The resonance cascade happening is also somewhat extended, and definitely enhanced. They didn't change this specific scene too much, outside of making it 100 times more awesome.
Oh, fucking shit, man. Explosions and everything. God damn, this is awesome.
Duty Calls is one of my least favorite chapters in the original Blue Shift, mostly due to the sewers where you have to blow open the spinny things. The remake once more greatly improves this whole chapter, starting with improvements right back at the elevator crash, where you have to open the elevator using 2 emergency levers. Just a small scene that adds a lot to this moment. We end up finding a scientist, who's now stuck in a small hallway. Everything has been locked down, and we need to find the security codes for this door, or someone who has them. On the way we meet the reworked vent guy of Blue Shift, who in this case actually knocks you out with, you guessed it, a crowbar. He lets you know what to do and blah blah blah, we know that already. The rather boring looking acid of Blue Shift has been reworked to this bubbly green glowing acid, which is greatly demonstrated as harmful in this sequence. Black Mesa Blue Shift does a phenomenal job at naturally explaining concepts to you through its level design.
He just straight up fucking melted in the green sludge. Holy fucking shit. That is amazing graphics also. Yeah, it's very vibrant colors.
Something that remains a highlight of the original Half-Lives. Look, his skeleton came up.
Alright, that is extra terrifying. So, holy fucking shit, the guy got skinned alive. That is terrifying. And yet also really awesome that they showed it up in the graphics stuff.
What a cool detail is that. Eventually we meet Murdoch. A tiny detail being that he actually shoots in your direction at first. He apologizes right after,
is
but it
really
shows that
cool.
he rightfully has quite a bit of...
Like I said again, I really like the fact that they're going out of their way to add so much to this remaster, as opposed to just bumping up the graphics and details. This is how remasters should be made. Not some cheap-ass graphic increase and just losing all the details and information about the stuff. Fucking... That's straight up a scam if I've ever seen one.
anxiety and is ready to shoot at any moment. A trend in this mod being that they didn't need to add details, but now that they're here, they're great. Murdoch is a great companion. As you'd expect, he dynamically reacts to the environment and converses with the scientist later on as well, who gets kidnapped by Vortigons. Our time with Murdoch doesn't last for too long, as a suddenly starting elevator separates us. Don't worry though, this isn't the last time we see him. Vortigons in this mod were entirely reworked, mostly by adding a new attack to them, in which they throw Zen grenades at you. These are inspired by the Zen grenades of Alex, but function quite differently, mainly that they now bounce around in a fun, satisfying way. A cool addition. The sewer bit has been improved with the use of another companion we meet, this one being the re-added worker NPC. These were included in the files of Half-Life 1 but went unused, often being used in mods though, as they are essentially completed characters. For this mod they got a total redesign, which I'm in love with by the way. This part mostly plays out the same, and it again is somewhat mazy as a whole. This will be a repeating and basically the only problem of this mod. Sometimes areas feature too many twisting hallways and need you running back and forth over and over again, causing you to lose direction a lot. I still enjoyed this a lot more than the original though, especially thanks to this chap. Let me now talk about the insanely good soundtrack. You've been hearing it the entire time now, and it's seriously like top 5 video game soundtracks I've ever heard. It perfectly captures the mood of each moment and greatly amplifies it by creating a perfect piece to support it. We eventually reach the surface as we enter Captive Freight, Captive Freight is my favorite chapter of Blue Shift, if of course notoriously pulled down by the fact that Rosenberg's AI sucks. Still, it has a great vibe to it that always makes me
That
love
is
this chapter
fair.
on a playthrough. So, how does Black Mesa Blue Shift fare? Well, let's start by talking about extending, because holy shit. The original will last you about 20 to 30 minutes or so. The remake
Which
will
is
take you no less than
considerably
2
nice.
hours at least, with new areas, lots of new character interactions including the comeback of Murdoch and Otis, and a bunch of train driving. This chapter will feel like it lasts forever.
I mean, yeah, 2 whole fucking hours for an entire fucking chapter. Honestly, I'm glad they are extending about it that much. All things considered, they should be expanding all these chapters this way. I do wish they do remake opposing forces properly as well, because if Blue Shift and Black Mesa have done this correctly, this is going to be a blast. I mean, heck, they are 2 different teams and everything, but still, I am having my skepticisms, and I'm being cautious. Hopefully, my cautions are just the fact that I've been so spoiled by the fact that every single new game is just absolute ass, all things considered. I do hope it actually does, function perfectly in comparison to its original source, to its original variant, I suppose. We'll see it in the future, I guess.
But in a good way, mostly. Now, let me start with the positives. Relatively soon into the chapter do we meet up with Murdoch and Otis, who are the highlight of this mod for many, understandably so. These 2 make for a comedic duo unmatched by any other mod I've ever played. As we're used to by now, these 2 will perfectly interact with the environment and will serve as some comedic relief.
Oh, jeez. How? How?
You don't have to make the sounds, Otis.
Right.
Now, while this is obviously subjective, I think this mod strikes the golden ratio for comedy and seriousness with these 2 guys, which is
Yeah.
pretty hard to nail, especially in a mostly serious game like Half-Life.
Zombie.
Yes, mostly serious. That pun has been ruined every single day. It's not even a bad pun, all things considered, but everyone just keeps on making shit of it. I mean, what else would you call it all, huh? At least she gave it a name.
Right?
These surface areas we fight through alongside them here look absolutely astonishing, by the way. Peak design. Completely reconsidered and remade. None of this is something you find in the original Blue Shift, basically. I actually really enjoyed playing through this mod and then sometimes recognizing certain areas. After getting to fully interact and drive around a train car in the hopes of freeing Rosenberg, we managed to unlock it and find a worker NPC who happens to know Murdoch, and they aren't on great terms.
Ah, shit. Ronnie.
Oh, boy.
Don't even say it. No, I told
This makes for another great set of interactions we get throughout this mod. Shortly after this, we meet another scientist trapped in a container. These will become a part of the core 5 people in this mod eventually. The mod will pick up in difficulty as you play it, as is expected, but this one more than others. Eventually getting trapped in a train and being transported up into the air by a crane, we're on this platform with only minimal cover that doesn't even include our feet. It's this level of difficulty. Even
Holy
though I died quite a
shit.
bunch, I actually enjoyed this. Now, mods should follow regular level design principles, as does this mod as well. But many times, mods lean in too heavily on making sure non-experienced players don't have a too hard time, which is fine. And obviously, difficulties exist for this. In this case,
I mean, yeah, not just the difficulties. It's overall nice to have like both a good environment and overall guidance to how exactly you're supposed to play. If you make the game absolutely ass to basically orient and manage through to, play around, it's going to be a major problem for everyone. All things considered, if you manage to balance it out properly, you don't even need to, lower the difficulty. Now, obviously, you should have a much more increased difficulty in NPCs and, your intelligence and whatnot when you're actually going on harder difficulty. But it's better to have, an average Joe being capable of orienting himself and properly playing the game on normal difficulties. After all, the whole point of normal is for it to be normal, right? The whole reason for why you're playing normal is to make sure you're not going overboard with things. It's complex, but not to an extent that it's punishing or unfair. It's average. Then when you go to hard, it's supposed to be really difficult. And that's actually supposed to be the reason for why most games should strive to this type of, play style and gameplay, to make sure that when you're going to the harder difficulties, it actually is a major challenge as opposed to being a pushover or just straight up unfair. For me, for example, one of my favorite games, at least on PlayStation, that I have is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Was it Jedi Fallen Order? Yeah, it was Jedi Fallen Order. In that game, I always loved playing on normal difficulty, but I had such a fucking blast playing through every single part of that game. I eventually went and played through it on Master difficulty. That shit will literally kick your ass into oblivion. But it isn't unfair because, again, I played it on normal difficulty. It explained to me how exactly much parry time and stuff is going to be happening. And ultimately, it was, relatively speaking, balanced. So much so that even when I made a mistake, I had to make sure I had closed the window and made sure that I didn't get killed or something like that. And also, dodge was absolutely broken. Survivor, on the other hand, well, I don't want to talk about it. Let's continue.
Case, even on easy difficulty, this mod proved a challenge, mostly due to enemy count, enemy placement, and sometimes due to new attacks like the Vortigons Zen grenades, for example. I believe this to be fine, since most people playing this mod will have played all the original Half-Lives and probably quite a few mods before it as well.
Nah, you're giving them too much credit. Chances are some people may have not even played these versions of the game beforehand. I mean, that's probably the reason why they go overboard to outdo the originals and supposed to playing the originals. Maybe, I don't know.
But in case you plan on this being one of your first Half-Life experiences, play on normal, which is this game's easy for some reason. Of course, outside of combat, we've also got
That's
puzzles,
weird.
which is why I added mostly to my sentence earlier when I said that this chapter lasts forever in a good way. Now, I played this mod on stream, so I luckily had people helping me along with the puzzles, because this mod seriously...
If only people would join my stream, or subsequently my channel. Like and subscribe.
challenges your puzzle-solving ability. You might recognize this area to be the one from the original Blue Shift where you'll find Rosenberg. This fact is unchanged. We will find Rosenberg in a second. A long second. This part is one a lot of people struggled with. Sometimes because of having to drive your train back and forth and figure out the correct order to do things, and sometimes because of other things, like the fact you are supposed to pick up enough momentum in a very small area to drive through a barricade, which you usually associate as impassable. My
Yeah,
recommendation to this mod?
that does sound major bullshit, all things considered. If, like, you're supposed to give us a hint that we're supposed to destroy the wall. It's kind of like the area in the original Half-Life where you had that stupid fucking barrier near the end, preventing you from just hightailing it from the Gargantua, I think. You know, the one that goes into Tram, one of the worst levels in the original game. That's basically it, all things considered.
Make this barrier somewhat less solid, perhaps a bunch of loosely connected metal panes or something. Not a solid concrete wall with sides
Would have
that do
been
not
fine
pass.
too.
And this happens twice in a row. Aside from this, we also get one of the coldest moments of all time. As you rotate this rail spinny thingy, you will see the shadows of HECU soldiers moving above you. I've never seen
That is
shadows
actually
utilized this
really
greatly
cool.
before, or Half-Life at all even. I was seriously impressed by this. Anyways, just before we managed to reach Rosenberg, we get knocked out. Luckily for us, Hounders came teleporting in, and in the rush they were in, the HECU that knocked us out threw us into the container where Rosenberg is in without taking away our weapons. A dumb decision we'll actually have picked up again by this game in a second. Before that we meet Rosenberg.
Huh?
His reveal is greatly drawn out, but eventually we see him. I think he kinda looks low quality? I don't know, compared to other faces he doesn't quite strike me as up to the same quality. Luckily of course this mod is a work in progress, so I assume they'll up his Rosen face texture come a future patch. He gives us the regular
that
Rosen
does seem
with the
normal.
voice actor that manages to do a really great impression of him.
Of course, none of that does a lot of good while we're stuck in here.
Now, it's not perfect, but the mix of similarity and talent is as good as it will get. I don't even think the original voice actor could nail the voice as good now, 20 years later. By the way, the original voice actor of Rosenberg also voices Duke Nukem, which is an interesting fun fact.
Now, this is a force to be reckoned with.
During the infamous
What the
Rosen
hell?
ladder, we arrive on top of the Rosen container, where we hear a general talk to the soldier who decided on throwing us into the container.
You're telling me that he still has all of his weapons, Marine?
Yes, sir, but you can't really shoot him while he's in there.
Which canonizes the stupidity of
Alright.
the decision to not take our
That's
guns.
actually really
Great
funny.
detail and great interaction as a whole. As per usual, you could have simply shot these guys before they said a word and totally missed this. I'm sure I missed a few
Yeah.
sequences myself, making this mod perfect for multiple playthroughs. We obviously beat all these guys and the following LAV boss fight as we know it from Blue Shift. Murdoch and Otis come back once more, and the chapter comes to an end as the whole crew moves to Old Black Mesa, a theme similar to Old Aperture. Black Mesa reimagined in a retro style. This helps canonize their teleportation technology a bit, as that was always a sore point in the story of Blue Shift and the question of how it could be canon. The teleporter and its area as a whole gets introduced as a top secret thing. The crew was shocked about
Really?
the idea of teleportation even.
Wait, so in the original, as far as I remember, it was like a closed off area from the old facility. Basically abandoned and absolutely trashed over time. So in this, it's just a secret facility? That's an interesting change to the game.
Including the scientist. So this being an unknown thing even among Black Mesa workers, and it being hidden away like this is a great way to explain this teleporter existing. The retro area looks really great as well, including old school HEV suits, which many wish
Okay, that
they
is
would have put
actually
on,
really
as makes
cool.
sense given we go to Zen. I'm not sure how to feel about it myself. I like Barney being a simple security guard and picking up actual armor instead of suit batteries, but I get why people suggest this. It would make more sense. Let me know what you think in the
It's overall also super cool. I mean, can you imagine just having an HEV suit and wandering around in an alien world? Like, it makes sense for you to have this type of stuff. Why the hell would you not want to have an HEV suit? I mean, it makes sense to have like armor and stuff like that, but at the exact same time, why not have the HEV suit? I was about to say they almost nailed it. It's not like anyone's gonna care that much if you don't have an HEV suit. What, I'm supposed to lose my shit every time I don't get everything I want? Small nitpicks and details like that are, at the very least, frustrating, but hey, it's not that bad.
comments. Anyways, we eventually start up the really great looking Rosen teleporter alongside Walter and Simmons and then jump into Zen as we
Does
enter the
look
final
really
chapter that has been
beautiful.
released. Focal point. And oh boy, now it goes without saying that the Zen chapters, be that Half-Life 1, Opposing Force or Blue Shift, suck. Opposing Force
True,
luckily mostly
true.
avoided Zen outside of bonus content that is accessible using the Displacer cannon. Half-Life 1
And it was used to also resupply you and give you a reason to go to Zen. Honestly, Opposing Forces did it the best because it didn't exactly force you into playing into a different overworld or stuff like that. It required platforming and stupid ass fucking jumping and stuff like that. All things considered, Opposing Forces did it the best because it still kept you in the facility while also going out of its way to give you a device that gave you a reason to go there for supplies, overall armor, and everything else. It did it the best, I think.
One's Zen chapter itself is very short, but followed by the Interloper chapter, that most usually just bundle together. So yes, overall, Zen in Half-Life 1 is pretty bad. The original Blue Shift has its own problems with Zen. The fact that it starts off with about 15 minutes of climbing through way too long Zen vents, that it looks bland, as do all iterations of Valve and Gearbox's Zen, and that there again isn't much fun to be had. One part that is
Again,
somewhat enjoyable is near
understandable.
the ending, where you align the crystal in a small fleet of enemy spawns, though you are also very likely to miss where to go afterwards, which is above the crashed debris in the research station tunnel. The truth is, the best part of Blue Shift Zen is that it doesn't last for too long, which will not be the case for the Black Mesa Blue Shift remake. The Black Mesa remake of both Half-Life 1 and Blue Shift both do one thing, which is extend Zen. Black Mesa's Zen is a
Not just extended, they overall improved it from what I've seen or heard from people. Like, it's overall way more platformy, new enemies are introduced, it's overall super action-packed and absolutely fantastic. So, I'd say expecting Zen to suck is now going to be the opposite. You expect Zen to be absolutely great in every way.
about as long as the entire rest of the game is. And same goes for that of Black Mesa Blue Shift. I have a more detailed video on my opinions of Black Mesa and specifically Zen on my channel that you can watch after this video, but to boil down my thoughts on Black Mesa Zen, talking about the Half-Life 1 remake, not Blue Shift, it's that it overstates its welcome. which is a pretty common opinion about it. The visuals are insanely great throughout, but the gameplay starts to become repetitive and frustrating later on. It starts off fun. The environments
Really?
quickly shift from one biome to another as you're introduced to new enemy types and gameplay elements that are exciting at first, but not enough to ensure that you have fun for a total of about 3 to 4 hours. Drawn out puzzles is mostly what the criticism of Black Mesa's Zen boils down to though, which you get a lot of. 30 minutes of the same environments running back and forth to do something, it never really feels rewarding. You simply wanna reach the Nihilith, which is perhaps my favorite thing of Black Mesa. The iteration of the Nihilith boss fight was really great. So now with that out of the way, how does Black Mesa Blue Shift's Focal Point chapter hold up? Well, as I mentioned, it's about as long as the entire rest of the game. So the question becomes if it overstays its welcome the same as Black Mesa's one does.
Or is
Focal
it
Point
super
starts off with some
repetitive?
beautiful views of Zen, as one would hope, and beautiful they are. We also get introduced to the main point of interest. Similar to the Nihilith's island, a floating island from which gigantic green pulses are emerging is seen in the distance. Rosenberg mentioned that we would be teleported right to the Zen crystal rotate T thing. Oddly enough, this didn't happen. The rest of Focal Point will feature explanations as to what exactly is going on in this part of Zen. One of my favorite parts of the iteration of Zen here is that it's inspired by the Zen of Half-Life Alyx a lot, including bringing back Zen grenades as mentioned earlier. This time though they directly imported the Half-Life Alyx Zen spawner model. Insane stuff. Some environments look like they were taken straight out of Half-Life Alyx, which I think is a good thing for mods to aspire.
Straight up from the VR version of the game. Half-Life Alyx, I've never played it, and I have watched people play it though, and I really liked it, all things considered. It was fantastic.
Half-Life Alyx introduced a bunch of new mechanics, so to make use of these in a regular Half-Life mod is a good idea. Outside of that, we also get some new enemies, including the Shell Squid, a bull squid that fires acid clouds and explodes on death that you can only damage from certain areas similar to the Shell Crab of Half-Life Alyx. The acid clouds keep doing damage for a few short seconds after firing. We've also got explosive protozans, which are these cute, usually harmless, floating blobs, but this time they actually explode when they get near to you. We've also got another type of new bull squid, one that fires the little weird exploding bubbly things from Half-Life Alyx. They have a ton of health, unless you shoot their weak spot. Also added are some fish, which are harmless, and the Archer, which is a cut enemy of Half-Life 1 that has been reimagined here. These only prove a minor challenge, but they look incredibly beautiful. Outside of these unique enemies, you of course also get all the new Black Mesa ones. Overall, this makes for a great amount of fun enemy variety. Moving on to puzzles, I thought a few could use some adjustments, but that they were fun overall, at first at least. Which, let me get to that now. We solved some great puzzles in what one might expect to be the end of this chapter, where you align the crystal as you know it from the original Blue Shift. But instead of this being the end, there is a new problem. The computer mentions that the signal is blocked by something. For this, I need to explain the lore, which at this point gets a little complicated. Not in the sense that it's very hard to understand, but one has to be incredibly perceptive of everything said and the surroundings to attempt to piece together the story. And even then, I'm not too sure. Shout out to Miles07 for helping me understand it. By reading quite a bunch of boards with info on them, we find out that the crystal network is destabilizing and suspected to collapse somewhere between 1998 and 2004. So exactly the best guess as to when Half-Life 1 and the expansions are set at. The crystals collapsing apparently is just a random thing happening alongside the events that are actually going on, but maybe speculated to be the Zenians doing in an attempt to keep you away, as the collapsing crystal ecosystem makes your adventure quite a bit harder. Remember how Rosenberg said he teleported us nearby here, and that didn't end up being true? And now our signal is being blocked? Turns out, we have to go and take care of the Interceptor, that disrupts teleportation in an attempt to stop humans and probably also Combine from invading Zen. This is where the green pulses were coming from. And look, I'm nowhere near claiming that it's as bad as Black Mesa in any way. Overall, the environments and gameplay were varied enough up to this point to keep the mood up, keep things interesting and thus to not cause fatigue. But on our mission to take care of the Interceptor, we enter Zen factory environments, similar to Interloper of Half-Life 1 and Black Mesa, which I simply can't enjoy. And at this point, you are 3 hours deep into the Zen experience here. I'm not saying these levels are particularly bad or anything.
It's just basically a repetitive reusage of, like, both the Black Mesa Zen and this version Zen. That is actually one of the things that I suppose is kind of frustrating about Zen. It's overusing everything. Like, it's only so fun until you get bored of the environment. It's one of the main reasons why certain other areas in both the regular Half-Life and subsequently others are so fun. For example, when you exit Black Mesa in the outskirts, it's really engaging because it's, you know, new territory. Something you're going to have to strive through to get to the, what was it, the Lambda Complex? I think so. The other one is in Half-Life 2 when you get to Ravenholm. That place is absolute nightmare fuel. At least when it comes to quote-unquote playing like a retard. But overall, it's very clustered, very has multiple interactions with the environment, and overall, the zombies are slow, but overall keep you engaged. You know, you have to strike a balance between atmosphere, world, and subsequently interactability, because if you just have a gigantic area that you just have to push buttons, push crystals, or other types of frustrating stuff, naturally becomes overwhelming and very bland, all things considered. And this is actually the case with this game, and subsequently perhaps the Black Mesa version of the game. It's just too long. Too long.
The level design itself is polished. I was simply slowly but surely growing tired of Zen. Walking along hanging vines or pipes,
They
jumping
put
from platform
Among
to
Us
platform,
in
broken up by
there.
occasional combat may sound good, but it started getting repetitive. And unfortunately, these Zen factory areas just happen to personally be my least favorite. I much more enjoy the nature of Zen and occasional research lab, not the industrial tone. But this is up to preference. Now thankfully it didn't end long afterwards. So if you were to ask me, I wouldn't wish for Zen to be shortened by more than one map. Simply for its length, I don't think I'd look forward to a replay much. But the singular puzzles and the combat we get here is unique and interesting enough. And I was lucky to have the lead developer of this mod in my live chat while playing, who assured me they were reworking some of the puzzles. So that's good news.
Yeah, that is good
remember,
news.
all work in progress.
That means they're
as mentioned
technically
previously.
speaking
In a
making
sequence
it
not too
easier
unlike
and
the Hufflepuff
subsequently
finale, we eventually shoot
more
at this
replayable.
interceptor and manage to destroy it, causing the equivalence of an earthquake in Zen. This is a pretty hard sequence, but overall enjoyable, if the Zen fatigue hasn't hit you too hard at this point. The chapter finally comes to an end by us returning to the funny crystals and jumping into a teleporter, which is also the end of the mod for now. Obviously this is rather abrupt, but given that 2 more chapters are yet to release, this is a given. The 2 missing chapters will be released as one update in the future, as the latter Leap of Faith is only one map. So, what are my closing thoughts on Black Mesa Blue Shift? While this video may have seemed like a balanced amount of critique and glazing, as the kids like to call it, in reality, this one requires way more glazing than I've done here. I kept thinking in my playthrough, well damn, how can I fit about 700 compliments of the genius ideas these guys implemented into one comprehensive video? Because look at this, TARP animations and vine physics. Vine physics! This engine is over 20 years old! And the answer is I can't.
20 years
And I don't
old
want to.
engine?
This mod is so
Holy fucking
incredibly phenomenal
Christ.
that I really want each of you to experience the love put into it on your own, and to thus support this team by doing just that, playing it. As I don't see a way where it isn't in everybody's top 10 at the very least. And if you really don't like something, the team is listening to feedback. Let them know what you think. I really hope this ends up getting a Steam release, either a standalone one or as a DLC for Black Mesa, because it deserves all the recognition it can get. Half of my playthrough was spent with my jaw on the floor. Zen overstaying its welcome by like 1 map is not enough to make me not recommend this for everyone. So if you own Black
True,
Mesa,
that is
you
fair.
should go and play this immediately. It's free, by some miracle. I'll make sure to cover the next chapter when
What,
it
it's
releases.
free?
It remains to be seen if this will be a main channel video or simply a live stream, which if you want to see the VODs of me playing Blue Shift, those are on my second channel. Let me know what you guys think of this mod in the comments. Consider subscribing and joining the Discord to receive news like live stream announcements and such. Link is in the description. Also let me know what you think about the YouTube captions instead of the integrated subtitles. I believe this will allow for more accessibility at the small cost of them looking a tiny bit different. By the way, these are not the YouTube auto-generated ones, as those really suck. These were added by me. And yeah, otherwise, thank you for watching.
Ah, dang it. Stupid short arms. Ta-da!
Alright, that's pretty fucking hilarious. Go play Black Mesa Blue Shift, especially if it's free. Go play it now.